think we're good. Yeah. So, rough start. Haven't done an episode since last week. But Mr. Paul Mila with the patience of a saint. I've rescheduled this.
I'm not known for that normally.
I know. Well, I don't know why I said I know. I didn't know that. You have had the patience of a saint. I've had two reasons why I had to reschedule, but as I tell everyone, this is my podcast. I have no boss. I only have on people I want, and I'm also very direct. So if I didn't want you on, I wouldn't play this rescheduling game. I would just not respond. If you're like, Tom, let's do a podcast, I
appreciate that.
Yeah. So So people I want to have on, I have on, and it really just has been a hectic August. This is like the second night I've spent in my apartment in August. So it's just been an insane August. But none of that matters. Those are all excuses, and excuses aren't for men. They're for bitches. So Introduce yourself, my man.
How you doing?
I'm doing very good. For all the new listeners, please introduce yourself, because you came on
Sure.
like 300 episodes ago.
Yeah, Paul Mila. I'm a, scuba diver, underwater photographer, and author. Did I say that right? Author, scuba diver, underwater photographer, and that pretty much covers it. And corporate dropout. I used to be in corporate life for my real job up until about maybe 15, 20 years ago. We kind of worked in the early days of home banking in the financial services industry. So I helped to develop all the protocols. When you people make payments today on your computer, looks real easy. Trust me, in the early days, it was not easy. We had banks, the same bank. Okay, you're paying your student loan at your bank. Well, there were so few electronic links, even within the institutions at the time, that when you wanted to pay $20 to your chemical bank student loan department would get a check from the payment area. Somebody would walk over a check and say, "Here, deposit this in the account," because there were even internal links weren't always available to carry the information. You could move the money, but the trick was carrying the information with your name and your account number and the dollar amount. So that was what I did for a real job. I put the food on the table, a roof over their head, and the kids through college.
I was just thinking, that's another podcast for another time, because you had a fascinating life before you did all of this shit, which was fascinating. For everybody listening, we've done an episode before about swimming with sharks, and you've authored several books, right? If I'm correct.
Right. I've done 5 novels, adventure novels based with scuba diving as a background, a nonfiction book, and more recently 3 children's books, mostly dealing with sea turtles.
Yeah.
And kind of I was able to incorporate my underwater photography into those books.
Yeah.
Which was a lot of fun. So I've been busy on a lot of different fronts. As you get older, you got to keep the brain going. You got to
100.
You got to refuse to do these things.
Dude, 100%. And I'll put the links to all those books in the description. And yeah, I wanted to say children's books, but I wasn't sure, and I didn't want that to come across as insulting. But yes, if I remember, it was children's books. Or the latter 3. But yeah, no, on that topic of, because this is how my podcast goes, nothing ever stays on topics, we will get to whales, keeping the mind busy, man. I lived at home between August 2016 and April 2021. And man, I taught myself graphic design at that time, but I listened to so many audiobooks and so many hundreds of documentaries that, like, I had no idea, but I was kind of like laying the foundations for this podcast, like the ability to just pull information out of nowhere. But, when I first moved into my own apartment, like got to live on my own again at age 30, most people, I experienced it at 18, but then I experienced it again at 30. Okay. Like everything, it was, I can take an hour-long hot shower now. I can turn the air conditioner on whatever I want. I can, and it's like an 18-year-old, you're kind of feeling it out again. And that was fun, but I kind of also stopped really listening to audiobooks for like the first 2 months. I was kind of playing video games, just blah, blah, blah. And it dawned on me, this was about a month ago, it dawned on me that I was like, I'm not in school and no one's going to make me learn. And I can very easily see where this slides into, I might be sliding into a comfort zone for the next 4 decades of Netflix series and funny shows. And there's nothing wrong with those. It's good to, you gotta unwind. You gotta, all play and all work and no play makes you a jack a dull boy. But what you just said about you gotta keep the mind sharp and keep engaging it. like a month ago, I realized I was like, I have to start scheduling authors every week, and every day I have a checklist. You go to the gym, make my bed, I have just several laundry, dishes, just several things. And one of the things I added was I have to listen to at least 1 hour of an audiobook or documentary a day, which is a roundabout way of saying, yes, you have to keep challenging your mind, because it will go to mush. But I'm not letting you talk, so sorry.
That's okay. I was picking up on what you were just talking about there. That I think you said kind of when you realized it was to your own benefit that you wanted to do this stuff, you were actually more motivated to do it.
Yes.
Which gets back to my elementary school years, of Catholic school.
Yeah.
When I had the good brothers and sisters beating this stuff into you, and that just didn't work for me. When I went to college and the professor said, okay, for your next assignment, read 50 pages, but I don't really care if you do it or not. That motivated me more than the threat of getting my head beaten if I didn't do it.
Yes.
So it's all, I guess maybe it's maturity. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't say I'm mature, but it's no. I mean, as someone that went to Catholic school for 12 years, I had a nun, Sister Lorraine, 4th grade. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that's a different story from that. But no, is when I got to college, is when I turned into a straight A student and got into medical school. Is because it was a bit of fear. Yeah, the professor's like, you're going to need to study organic chemistry 12 hours a week. If you don't, you'll fail. If you do well, maybe you'll be a doctor. I don't care. And you're like, oh shit. Mom and dad aren't here to make you do it. And you're like, oh, okay. And yeah, kind of. So on that note of keeping the mind sharp, and I try to do that with different guests on this podcast, and this is a perfect example of one, is swimming with whales. So for everybody that hasn't listened to the prior podcast, we talked about swimming with sharks and your experiences with those, and we kind of went down all these different rabbit holes with that. Swimming with whales, let's just jump in. What is, no pun intended, what is just the general feeling of getting underwater and seeing something the size of like a semi-truck?
It's kind of an oh my God moment. I always used to like whales. I'm living on Long Island. You can go on whale watching trips, and you see them from the safety of a boat, a good sized boat, and you see their backs, you might see the head, the tail. You don't really see the entire animal. But when you actually get in the water, and this is my first experience, well, just to back up a second, how did it even start? Mm-hmm. Starts, like most things, kind of serendipitous. With you don't plan it. I was on a scuba diving trip with a Scuba Network, my local dive operator here, and they were doing a trip down to Bonaire, which is one of the ABC islands, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, down that way. And during one of the dive trips there, one of our local trips of the day, this young lady accompanied us. She was single by herself. She wasn't with our group, but she happened to be alone, and they had room in the boat. So she joined us. And we got to talking, and we're talking about, we said, let's come to dinner with us. Let's have a dinner, be social and stuff like that. You do that when you're diving and meet very interesting people. And I noticed she had a silver whale tail on a chain. So looking to make conversation, I said, oh, I see you have a whale tail on your chain. I guess you like whales. And she goes, oh, yes, I go swim with them every year in the Dominican Republic. And I said, you do what? With who? You swim with whales? You can do that somewhere? And she, oh, yeah. It's under a control situation. The Dominican Republic has a whale sanctuary called the Silver Bank, and it's about 80 miles off the shore. And a number of boats are licensed to do this, so you can go in and spend time with them. I said, I don't believe this. Wow. So I checked it out. A year later, I'm going down there with an outfit. Actually, the trip was run by this woman, Joan Ocean, who I've tried to...
Yeah, I've tried to get her on.
Right? She was putting this trip together. So I said, great. So we were down there. And, you leave the Dominican Republic, you go out 80 miles, it's called the crossing, to the area called the Silver Bank. It's called the Silver Bank because there's a lot of coral reefs around the area, make it kind of shallow. And in the old days, going back to the days of the Spanish galleons, they were taking gold and silver treasure back to the old world. And they didn't have GPS, they didn't have, sonar and stuff. They'd hit these reefs, lose their treasure all over, and it became known as the Silver Bank. Okay, because of sunken treasure, which I didn't see. I think it's all been recovered by this time. Anyway, so we're down there and we're in a boat. We go into this area. We dive. You're going to be there for 3 or 4 days. You just put the anchor down. You hang out there, and the captain's giving us a briefing. Okay, here's how we're going to do it. There's no scuba diving. It's only snorkeling and free diving. No bubbles. 2 reasons for no diving. If the whale goes down, they don't want you to harass the whale. It's on the whale's terms. 2, he said, blowing bubbles is a sign of aggression underwater to a whale. He goes, trust me, you don't want to piss off a 50-ton whale. So we said, okay. So those are the rules. No scuba diving and no bubbles, just free diving and snorkeling. So we're on this little dinghy. You go out for the mothership every day, and 20 people tend to a little dinghy. You go out. It's called a Zodiac, actually, an inflatable with a motor on it. And he's trying to spot the whale. Sometimes you see them, breaching and things like that. He goes, oh, there's a whale below us. Looks like we have a sleeper. Everybody over the side. So we go over the side, and I'm adjusting my mask, looking for where's the bottom. I don't see. Where's the whale? I don't see the whale. The bottom began to move. I said, oh, that's the whale.
Oh,
okay.
Holy shit.
We're in about 60 feet of water. So now I'm watching this whale, and the thing you don't realize when you see whales from the surface, like most of us do normally, is you see, like I said, the back, the top, whatever. You see the girth, the entire whale's body. So trust me, if somebody says you're as big as a whale, it's not a compliment. I mean, these things are huge. I mean, they're big. They weigh about 1 ton per foot. So a 50-foot whale, 50 tons as a rough guide, okay? So now the whale begins to move. He's coming out, and I'm taking all the details. I'm trying, oh my God, look at this huge thing going beneath me. I'm at the surface. He's about 10 feet down. Only a few people below me. And he's passing right beneath me. I'm looking at his head. I'm looking at the shape of the blowhole, the fins. I look back. I see the tail fluke hits the surface, down, up, down, after he propelled himself. I realized 2 more strokes, I'm going to be toast. So I put my hands over my chest so I wouldn't get broken ribs. But as the whale went under me, it held its fluke when it knew I was over its fluke, or its fluke was beneath me, and it just kept gliding past. And when it went past me, it resumed its up and down motion. So I'm saying to myself, this whale knew where I was in relationship to its body and took care not to hit me with its fluke. I was amazed. So I watched the whale go off, and that was my first experience seeing a whale. I was like, oh my God. Get back on the boat, and I'm telling this guy, the boat driver, what happened. He goes, yeah, they do that when they realize if you're there, unless you surprise them, you can have an accident. But if they know you're there, they take great pains to not hurt you, to stay away from you. So that was my first time seeing a whale underwater, and it was, I got to tell you, more than a heart-stopping moment.
You got to imagine how it's. I was just up visiting my parents, and like my dad went out and like they're in the woods and like picked some like berries, and he came back and it was in like the way only like my dad can, is just like, he's like, isn't it just so insane that like this like most delicious like candy just grows. It's just, no one touched it, no one designed it, no one was like, today we're doing this. It was just like water, dirt, and sunlight made this.
Right.
And it's like, right, it is, right? You've ever just bite into an apple or some watermelon and you're like, this wasn't like made in a boardroom. You're like, this is just, so what I said is like, you kind of understand some of the like influence of like early religions or the Bible, where it's like, oh, right, this is the gift of God. Because, I mean, it's amazing now when we have, Wi-Fi and digital cameras, but imagine if it's 10,000 years ago and you're eating a berry. Truly, right? You've got to be like, this is a gift from God. You got to imagine what it was like the first time someone saw like a whale. Like, that's got to be the basis of some mythology, or like what the Greek Titans, or.
Right. Well, interesting. Some of the first how whaling even began. They saw them, I guess, from whatever little boats they had. But the first time people got a real good look at a whale was when a whale would get washed up.
Yeah.
I had no idea how to catch these things or how big they were. But occasionally on some of the shorelines, a dead whale would wash up. And that's when they began to see just how big these things are and then what they could use them for. As far in terms of food and the blubber and everything else, they would cut up. So before there was actually whaling out on boats, the first real whaling was shore whaling. They wait for a whale to wash up. Then they realized, hey, there's more out there. Let's go catch them. And that's how whaling kind of started. But to your point about God, not to get overly dramatic here.
Who cares?
One person, we were talking about this, after our days, we would go out twice a day, morning and afternoon. Go out in the morning, see the whales, come back for lunch, go out again in the afternoon, come back for dinner. This went on for almost a week. And someone said, looking into the eye of a whale is like looking into the eye of God. And I thought about it and said, that's pretty cool, but until it actually happened to me. Because on some of our encounters, we got that close that you're looking at, they have an eye the size of a softball, like this big, right? And unlike the eye of a shark, shark looks at you, and it's basically, the intelligence part. I mean, they're pretty intelligent for what they have to do, but you can tell the assessment is: are you food? Are you a threat? Or are you part of the background? That's about it. When a whale looks at you, you realize you are being assessed and evaluated by an extremely high intelligence of a creature. I don't want to say an animal. I'd say a being, another alternative being, if you will, because they're super intelligent. That has a lot of this intelligence, and it's evaluating you. And look at this eye looking at you, and it's not looking at you. Are you food? Are you a threat? They're trying to figure out, okay, what you're about. I'm looking at you. You're just trying to figure out what I'm about. You realize I'm looking at it, and you almost feel like this exchange going on intellectually, that you're being evaluated by a creature that's incredibly powerful, that could just wipe you out if it wanted to with one swish of its tail or a pectoral fin, but it doesn't. So this is a creature that's been formed by eons of evolution. So you've got this physically imposing creature, being, if you will, with a very highly intelligent, evolved brain, evaluating you, and you wonder what it's thinking about, where you fit into this scheme of things, and it's very humbling, is all I can say. And I guess they use the analogy of God because it is so powerful. It's a potentially powerful thing. So, but it is a very, to be looked at by something that's so powerful and know it's evaluating you, and then it kind of looks on, goes on its way, and they can blink. They have eyelids. They can change their expression. They have kind of an eyebrow. They don't have, the hair like we do, but they have an eyebrow. They can look like this or look like this, surprised or angry or something, whatever emotion is there. So you have all these things going on, and for those moments that you're looking at this thing in the eye, it is an incredibly, like I said, a humbling experience. You can tell they weren't as impressed by me as I was by them.
Yeah, they're like, who the hell is this guy, right? They're all talking. They're like, yeah, man, that was cool. You're like, humans are like, it's like looking at God, and the whales are like, who are these morons?
Yeah,
right?
Those little guys with those little tiny fins, those little funny things in their face, is what they want.
Yeah, but right, it's kind of like I don't know, something you just kind of disregard, like seagulls or something. It seems like seagulls are pretty like binary. It's like they're either they're either okay with you walking by them on the beach or they're not, and it's like about it. They're either flying or they're not, and it's just it almost seems like a tree or something, like not really there, just kind of reactionary. Like a rock goes up, it's just like, all right, whatever. But versus like a cat. Like whenever I go visit my friends with cats, like, I mean, like you can tell they're like studying you, and they're like, some of them like you, some of them like tolerate you, some of them just really have some like sass, and they're like, who is this guy? Some are playful. You can tell some are just judging you, like looking down on you.
Imagine if it's a 50-foot cat.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, right? It's got to be that. It's that same sensation of like, a cat will just sit in like a corner on a windowsill and just look at you for an hour, and you're like, what? But it's not like a dog where a dog kind of stares and come licks you. With a cat, there is some sort of like, I don't know, it almost feels more intelligent, but it's just that scaled up. And then, facial, just eye expression, that can only add to the whole equation, right?
Yeah, and they have a culture. One of the signs of intelligence is culture. Well, there's two signs of intelligence, they say. One is playfulness, which whales and dolphins do have. They enjoy playing. And then they have a culture. The whales in one part of the world will do different things. They have a different language, if you will. They sing a different song. They do different things that, in their behavior. Then another part of the whales, the same species, humpback whale. We're talking about humpback whales here, by the way, but it's the audience we're talking about. So humpback whales. But so they have these different populations around the world, and they act somewhat differently based on their culture. So the fact that they have a culture, and they do have this playfulness, if they want to jump out of the water and do things and roll around and stuff, you can tell they're having a good time for themselves. It's a sign of intelligence, and it's that intelligence is what makes me feel very humble to be in their presence. That they tolerate us, and take care not to hurt us.
Yeah.
So that was.
Yeah, it's and Joan Ocean, yeah, I've tried to get her on here a million times with your help, and I think she's busy right now. But you should send this to her so she can hear this part. But she said she didn't think that my audience would be too interested in her, and she explained how she thinks that dolphins are wildly intelligent and how they use some sort of like telepathy to talk and to interact. And my response was, I would love to talk about that. I think that would be the coolest thing. This isn't a very like serious podcast. It's not at all. I think that would be awesome. So, Miss Joan, if you're listening to this, please come on my podcast. I would love to talk about swimming with dolphins and like dolphin telepathy. I think that would be an insane podcast. But that's another thing.
Okay.
When you're down there, is there any sort of like, you know, when you like play with like a pit bull or something, and it's just like a big softie, but in the back of your mind, it's like, this is still a pit bull. Like, you know, it could rip my throat out. Is there any fear when you're down there of like, this thing could just pancake me? Like,
yes, on a couple of areas. In other words, one obviously is you look at their tail flukes. When we opened the website about the tail fluke going up and down, I thought it was going to hit me. These whales, like I said, they weigh about a ton per foot. So 40-foot whale, about 40 tons, you know, whatever. Well, when you see them breach, you know, the body goes way out of the water. It's that tail fluke that's propelling them. Okay, so you realize that now some people have actually been so close that the whale won't realize the little boat's there that comes up and could land on them, and that's happened occasionally. I know I've never seen it happen myself, but I know it does happen. But to know that tail fluke is so powerful, that if you get over it and it decides to push you out of the way. And in Tonga, we experienced some of that where the whales kind of like lost a little patience, and they tried to take, you know, they didn't want the diver around. They didn't, whatever there was a comfort level they didn't have. And they would just take that fluke and flash it right through the water, right near them. So they were giving them a message. Their pectoral fins, so side fins, you know, are the longest appendage that any mammal has next to its body. And they're about 10, 12 feet long. And one of their behaviors is to take that pec fin and slap it against the water. It's called pec fin slapping. Why? Scientists think it might be a form of communication. It could be some kind of like display of dominance. It could be just something for playfulness, you know. So the fact that you get too close to those things, you know, is a little disconcerting, that you want to make sure that you don't do something that could either spook the animal, you know, or, you know, you don't want to reach out. With the rules of engagement, where if the whale happens to brush you or whatever, fine, don't you go out and reach out and try and touch the whale. You don't know what's going to happen, and you want to respect their space. So you know that they have these very powerful bodies. They can do whatever they want. There was a couple of photos I had here. I don't know. Did you happen to queue them up? Or can we queue them up?
I got them on my email. I didn't pull them up on my computer.
If I do share screen, can I pull them up? Like if I hit share screen and that has a, I want to.
I think you can. I'll be honest. I still don't know how to use share screen. I've done about 500 episodes on Zoom, and I still don't understand it.
Okay. Let me hit it.
Well, I have them on my email, right? Well, it's reversed, but
okay. Well, okay. And that shot that you used for the cover of one of my books is a baby whale. Let's keep on going. Okay, that's a baby whale that I took in the Dominican Republic. Okay, that's another diver on top, not me. That little thing in the bottom corner is just the graphic designer put that little mask in for.
Yeah.
It's like, if you let's go scroll through that a minute. Let's just scroll through. So you might have the picture by itself.
Here we go.
Okay, the raw picture. That's okay. Well, that's a different shot. That's another whale. Keep on going. I tell you what, I'll talk to the whale. Let's keep on going. I'll talk to the picture if we can get the right one. To your point, what I wanted to get was, okay, well, this is interesting. I guess there's a baby whale. Okay, go back to the baby whale. There's the baby whale, okay? Right. So a baby whale comes near us. Now, you have in the Dominican Republic, whales are born there every year. That's why they go down there. They snowbird. The Dominican Republic whales are the ones we see up here in the summertime in the north. In the wintertime, they go down to the Dominican Republic and, you know, they snowbird down there. That's where they have babies, they mate, and all kind of good stuff. So the adults have seen humans continually. We're like, oh, it's humans again. Baby whales have never seen us. We're like a toy for them.
Sorry, keep talking. I'm gonna send these to my computer right now so I can pull them up so everybody watching.
Okay, so this baby whale came by us very closely, and that I got a great shot of it. It's really, you can see its eye. It's got like a wide-eyed look, like it's really trying to take us all in.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to the next shot on that, if you can, I don't know if you can scroll to it.
It's gonna be one. All right, got them all. Now let me drop them in here. I mean, I'm still technologically illiterate.
I'm semi, so I can.
Should come on. Everybody listening to this is pulling their hair out. Like, what are these morons? What are these morons doing? No, I should have had this ready. I'm an idiot. Come on. And all right, I think we just got them. So let's see. Yes, here they are. So
okay, so if you have that little baby whale shot.
So I got the one. I will hold up on my phone so you can see which one I'm looking at right now. I got this one up.
Okay, that's the baby whale. You can see its eye. It's really like kind of looking at me. Now scroll to the next shot.
Okay.
And now you have. So now the baby whale's at the top. Here comes mom. So mom is coming over to check me out. Now at this point, I'm thinking, I'm watching this 50-foot whale coming towards me. Pec fins are down like this, and I'm thinking maybe this wasn't a good idea. You wouldn't get near a bear cub, a lion cub with its mother around, right? You'd be dead neat. So I'm wondering now what's going to happen. Okay, well the whale gets as close as to within 10 feet of me and begins to turn. And the next shot, if you have it on there,
with its tail.
No, not its tail. You'll see
this one.
No, if you go back one more with that's when it was leaving. Yes.
Okay.
So the baby whale's on top, right?
Yeah.
Now the mother whale turns, okay, and that pec fin, if she had kept it out, like extended, she would have whacked me with it. But what she did in that picture, as you can see it, she draws it back alongside her body.
Yeah.
And past me, so she wouldn't hit me with it. Okay, and that's the time, and she looked at me. And that was my first experience of looking at an adult whale eye to eye. So she came right up to me. And I'm saying, this doesn't look good. But then she turned, brought that fin next to her body, okay, so she wouldn't hit me, and then she went right past me. So she's within 10 feet of me, and I could see her eye. She's looking at me, and that's where I felt a real exchange. Like, was she saying like, "How do you like my kid?"
Yeah.
Or whatever, or is she saying, okay, you got close enough, that's good enough, don't do anything more than that. But you can feel that intelligence, that exchange going on. And that was one of the times, to your point earlier, that I feel a little scared, was when she was coming towards me after I had been so close to her baby whale. Now the babies, when they're born, are about 10 feet long, and they weigh a couple thousand pounds. They get heavy very, very quickly. They put on pounds per day, tens of 20 pounds per day, maybe more, of a high rich milk that the mothers produce to give them all that fat, all that blubber. So they get big fast. So that was probably one of the most, the initial scariest moments I had. But then it passed pretty quickly when I saw how accepting she was, and then that next shot was her tail that you have there.
I got it up.
Going away.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, bye-bye. That was pretty cool. So that was, because of those experiences. And this happened day in and day out with different, we went out, like I said, 2 different dinghies in different directions, but we come back and share our stories. Sometimes people would have not too much to say because everything was on the whale's terms. If whales decided to engage with us, people would have an amazing time. Sometimes whales would say, I'm not interested, see you bye, and they would just take off, and you can't keep up with a whale, trust me. They don't look like they're going very fast, they're going pretty fast. You can't keep up with them when they want to go. So we'd exchange our stories, but we all had these for the week, these amazing stories of the whales continually taking care not to hurt us, not to harm us, watching them interact with their babies and stuff like that. So that inspired me to write this first book, which I call Whales Angels, and that was the title of it. And I used the baby picture as the cover. And the angels are the people who, at that time, I think it was Greenpeace, would go out there, get in front of the harpoons and save the whales by making sure the whales couldn't shoot them with the harpoons. So it was like an anti-whaling novel, which is one of my my second book I wrote. And I worked into the story. And at that time, Japan was a big whaling nation, and they were trying to subvert the International Whaling Commission's rules on whaling, on commercial whaling. They were trying to institute a ban, and the Japanese wanted no part of a ban. So that was kind of like a reason for writing the book, that, trying to, kill these incredibly intelligent creatures who have every right to be on this planet as we do, to make dog food out of them and other products that we have substitutes for, was kind of like upsetting when you saw how these whales lived, So that related to that book.
My mouth has been open, so obviously you can't see because I haven't figured out screen share yet. But yeah, no, I had them up on the full screen, and I'm looking at them, and I guess when we were talking beforehand, I kind of had more of like a Disney image in my mind, but like I forget the entire, like anything in the ocean just kind of looks creepy, right? Because it just gets dark as it goes down, and it's it's not pool water, it's not like perfectly clear, right? It's very fuzzy and foggy and skewed. I'm looking at them right now. I mean, these things, excuse my French, these things are fucking dinosaurs.
Yes.
Like,
it's
just like ancient leviathans.
Yes, leviathan is how they were described. Yes,
I mean, it's just. I'm sorry. My mouth. I'm not. I haven't gone swimming with them, and I never will because I'm terrified of the ocean. But I'm looking at these right now, and it's just sort of. I mean, this looks like something from like a very well done, like sci-fi movie. Like it wasn't shitty CGI. It was like actual good. That's what this looks like. I mean, the picture of the mama coming at you, with its peck, is that it? Peck fins?
Pectoral fins.
Petrol fins.
We call them peck fins, but pectoral fins is what they really are. Yeah.
When it's like down sweeping and looking at you, I mean, I you know how like there is like imprinting in humans, like epigenetics, how like it's not as static as we think, that everything's a clean slate, right? Like, I mean, like, right, with like, was it like baby like rabbits or something? Like they've taken rabbits, like put them in an artificial environment in a lab, and then like had another generation and then another generation to the point where the original rabbits aren't alive, and the only thing these new rabbits on like the 9th generation have ever seen in their reality, their birth, their entire life, is just like 4 walls of like a laboratory. But then if they fly over like the shape of a crow or an eagle, they'll go insane and they'll go hide. And it's like they've never seen that. They don't know from experience. They didn't watch it kill someone. They see that image, that silhouette, and something in them that's been passed on just says, hit the deck. And,
right.
They think that's like why... They think that's why, like, it's sort of in all of us, right? Like monsters, scary monsters. It's probably because it was like lions in the woods, like, or whatever, bears. Looking at this right now, like, the image of it turning and coming at you, like, I feel like I'm activating some epigenetic imprint. Because I'm looking at it and it's like, this is the last thing that someone has seen. Like, this is the last... Maybe it's just the shape. Maybe it's because it's similar to like a shark. But like that sort of foggy blue, it goes from like light to dark to like turquoise to like black. And the way it's kind of turning, and it's so big that I was just up at the lake for a week, and the mountains farther away from you can see the atmospheric hazing as they get kind of harder to see. I mean, this whale has, ocean. This whale has atmospheric hazing. Like, the front of it is more clear than the back.
Right, because the visibility is maybe 50, 60 feet. Now, so if I'm 15 feet in front of the whale, you might not see the tail, because the tail...
That's what I mean.
70 feet away, yes.
That's what I mean, right?
Coming out of the blue gloom.
Yeah, right? Versus, like, if it was like a fish... It would kind of come out of it when it was 60 feet away. It would be fuzzy, and then it gets closer, and it's like, here's the fish. Versus a thing where it can be facing you, and the tail is still hazed.
Right. Yes.
I mean, that. And for everybody that was hoping that this was going to be a scientific discussion, tap out, because it's not. But there's something like biblical about that. There's something mythological, like. It's $100 bill only means anything when the U.S. is the world's reserve currency versus like, there's almost an epigenetic imprint to like, or like a Gucci shirt. Like if you showed that to someone 100 years ago, it wouldn't mean anything because it's all label recognition. Versus, there's almost some epigenetics to like a bar of gold. You're like, oh, kings fought over this, pharaohs fought over this. There's sort of that agreed upon, oh, this is timeless, whether it's, from the time Jesus walked to the time when Bezos is going into space. You see that brick of gold and you go, oh, yeah, that's money and power.
Yeah. That's why ancient people imbued these animals with, mystical qualities. Yeah. For example, the Indians or the Native, I'm not sure if we were supposed to say Native Americans or whatever, but up in Alaska,
yeah,
the orca was a mythological thing for them. I was on a cruise one time to Alaska, and the Inside Passage, and we stopped at these towns along the coastline of southwestern Alaska, and you can see all these totems that were carved by the people who were the indigenous people, and the orcas were a big part of their culture because the orca, as a killer whale, was not as big as a humpback. They're maybe 20, 30 feet, but they're every bit as powerful, but maybe more fearsome because they eat meat.
Mm-hmm.
Humpback whales or a baleen whale, they don't eat meat, so I didn't feel too unsafe as far as that aspect went. But so to your point, it's like when people in those days encountered these incredibly powerful sea creatures, they had the intelligence to know that who had more power. So they became the gods. They became totem gods and things like that, and they would pray to them to help protect us. The Hawaiians think sharks are mythical, or at least they did. Way back when. Sharks were thought to embody the spirits of people who were passed on and other mystical qualities. But so it's not uncommon for ancient people to imbue extremely powerful feelings or whatever, theories into these animals. But that's what the limit of what their understanding was.
Yeah, it's a whale is exactly what you would imagine would be like an ocean creature, and I know that's just like the most vanilla, easy statement, but like low-hanging fruit observation. But right, that's exactly right. You see like a snow leopard in the mountains, and you're like, yeah, I get that. Or like a snake in like the jungle, and you're like, yeah, okay. Or like a bunch of antelope or whatever. When you look at just the size of the ocean and the depth and the mystery of it, and yeah, a whale is exactly what you'd imagine, right? Mm-hmm. Just this enormous. Well, not now, because as humans have taken over the world and our ability to enact change on our environment is unparalleled. Mm-hmm. But really, I don't know, maybe prior to the last 200 years, I would say that they were largely sort of indifferent to us. Like, there's a certain size that, if you're on a Zodiac out in the ocean and like a Navy destroyer goes by you, like, you better avoid it because they don't give a shit. They're just you're dead. It's, yeah, you look at the size of a whale, and part of the majesty is almost like it looks at you and then like, maybe it will move its fin so it doesn't kill you. Maybe it won't. It's just sort of like, this is my kingdom.
That's a good point. I mean, that's exactly kind of what they do. Once they are finished with you, once they become bored, once they've checked you out and they realize that's all there is, they move on. if you go back to some of those other I wanted to talk about something else.
Oh, yeah. My bad. Hold on.
Do this again. Some friends invited me out to Tonga, South Pacific. Let's keep on going. I'll show the one I'm looking for. Your point. It's the one that's a whale right next to me. Keep on going. Yes, that one.
That one.
So, I had when I wanted to do something special when I hit 60 a while ago. So I was trying to think, what do I want to do? Well, I'm a big Jimmy Buffett fan, and I know in his autobiography, A Pirate Looks at 50, for his 50th, his family took him on a trip to the Amazon. So I said, okay, I'm hitting 60. I want to do something special.
Yeah.
Well, I got some friends of mine together, and they invited me out to Tonga, where they'd been before, to see the humpbacks out in Tonga, South Pacific, which is near Near New Zealand, out that way, near Fiji, New Zealand, over that way. So we went on a boat called the Naya. I got my little Naya shirt still, so it's still intact. One day we're out there snorkeling with these whales and stuff. I'm in the water looking for whales. And get that picture there that you just showed me?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I felt the water get disturbed. I looked to my right, and there's this huge whale that just surfaced right next to me. Okay? And now I'm a little familiar, because I had my previous experience years earlier in the silverbank. Bank. This is Tonga, a little different, but still humpback whales, but again, different culture of whales. These whales, they call them the dancing whales because they tend to do weird things in the water. Anyway, so I'm right next to this whale, 20 feet away, maybe 15 feet away, just at the reach of its pec fin, all right? And again, to your point about it's a living, breathing thing, huge, you hear breathing. When you hear a whale breathe,
oh, Jesus.
Just go, it's not just that, it's an explosive breath. It's a like that. And you hear the force, its life force is being expelled from its blowhole, and then it sucks all that air in. You hear it go in and it blows it out again. And just as an aside, a lot of people, you see cartoon drawings of a whale with its little spout, and people think that's water. It's not really water coming out. What it is, it's air. But because the whale's body, interior body, the heat is so high, okay, it condenses into a mist when they expel it. So the air outside is cooler than the air inside their body. So when they draw this air in, they heat it. It's almost like superheated because their bodies are so warm because of all the blubber that insulates them. So when they blow this air out of their blowhole, it becomes a mist all of a sudden because it's so hot compared to the cooler air, and that's what we see. It's not water coming out; it's air that turns to mist.
I never knew that. It's like NFL players in like a winter game.
Yeah, exactly. So same idea. So I realize I'm not next to some movie prop, okay? Like you mentioned earlier, it's not a phony thing. It's real. It's living. You hear it breathing. You feel it. And again, it's looking at you. I'm saying, oh boy. So now it begins to move. I say, I wonder if I can keep up with it. I wanted to get a photograph of its eye or something like that, So I'm swimming along the surface, kicking my fins as hard as I can, and he's moving, and the whale is letting me keep pace with it. It's not going so. It's letting me. I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, this whale is letting me swim next to it. I'm swimming next to a 60-foot humpback whale. This is totally incredible. And finally, to your point about, once they're done with you, they're done. He gave me another look like, okay, okay. This is, you've had enough fun. It just took one more breath, made it dive, and just kept on going into the blue room until it disappeared and left me on the surface. I wasn't going to follow it, obviously, But to your point, they have this intelligence and a certain degree of curiosity. And once his curiosity was still like, he wasn't that impressed. Okay, see you, bye. He just left, and that was it. So that was an amazing experience. Another photo you have there is a whale coming over my head with its pec fins extended. You see that one? There's no picture on there yet. Let's see. No, keep going. You'll know the one I'm talking about. He's kind of coming over my head. Keep going.
I don't think I think these are the only ones I have. Let me check my email again to make sure.
Right, sent me another one. Is I call it the flyover.
Let me see. I'll see if I missed any. Shit. Excuse me.
There's one with he's coming like over my head with his fins that's stretched out.
Going through my email to see if. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't. Let me bring that one over. Oh wait, there are several I didn't bring over. Hold on, let me grab them real quick. Paul, can you keep talking? So there's
sure. So anyway, so this whale, I had done a little dive, a free dive. I can go down 15, 20 feet. I can't go like 50 feet out of breath. I can go into it a little bit. So I'm down, and this whale decided to come in my direction. And I looked up, and I realized this thing's going to almost go over my head. So I had the presence of mind to take the shot, which was like I call it the money shot. It's one of those things that's coming above you, the whale. And my only thought, I knew it was going to clear me, and I could stay down a few more seconds till it passed. My only thought was, I hope it doesn't poop on me right now. That's the one. Yeah.
Jeez.
So this whale's going to come over. And I was just hoping, please don't poop on me.
Jesus.
I don't want to get covered in whale dung. So, and then it went right over me and kept on going,
What's all over its like chin?
That's interesting. It's a barnacle beard. for some reason, this population of whales, they come from South America. The other ones we're talking about in the Silver Bank, they migrate from Alaska and the Arctic down to the Caribbean. These whales come up from Antarctica into the South Atlantic. Okay, so they do the reverse. When it's summertime, they go down to the Antarctic. That's where they do most of their feeding, put on most of their weight. Okay, and when it gets cold during the winter, they come up to the near the equator from the south, and that's where they will mate. They're not going to eat for several months, and they can have babies and things like that. So during that journey, for some reason, they pick up a bunch of barnacles. It's called like a barnacle beard. And this population of whales it just collects, like, I don't know if it's because maybe the water stream, the way it goes, doesn't knock them off, or it just forces them to collect. But these whales have this, what's called a barnacle beard of tiny little crustaceans attached to their skin. So that's what that's all about. And what's interesting, sorry, go ahead.
It just adds to the mystique more, right? It just, again, it doesn't feel like a raft in a pool, but rather like if you see like a ship in a dry dock or something, right? You get that different feeling of like an oil tanker, and there's just kind of barnacles on the bottom or something. Yeah. It just adds to it. You're like, this thing is so big and lumbering that it's like, yeah, right? It's almost like if a monster had like, I don't know, snow on top of it because it was so tall. You'd be like, oh, like a mountain.
Same idea.
Jesus.
Yeah. So that was my experience with that whale. But that was one of my all-time like moments. Like, I hope this works out okay, you know. So this population of whales goes the other way from depending on the below the equator. And what's interesting, the whales in the northern equator, because the seasons are reversed. Okay, when the whales are from the northern hemisphere are summering or wintering in the tropics, the whales in the southern hemisphere are down in Antarctica. Okay, and then when the whales in the northern hemisphere go up to the Arctic, the ones from Antarctica go up to their equator for the warmer weather in the winter. So those populations of north and south whales never really meet because of that. They also, you might have whales coming across, in the same hemisphere, which is how some songs get passed on from population to population and things like that. But the whales from the northern hemisphere really never meet the whales from the southern hemisphere, and vice versa. The other thing that's interesting about whales, humpback whales, is that when they have these migrations, and scientists have wondered, okay, how do they do that? How do they go from, the Arctic down past our coastlines? They reach wherever they're going to go. And some go to the Silver Bank in the Dominican Republic, others go elsewhere, and the ones from the Antarctic come up they'll come to Hawaii. I'm sorry, the ones from Hawaii go from Alaska. That's the northern hemisphere. But the ones from the Antarctic, they'll go to Tonga and other places. How do they do this navigation? Well, one of the leading theories is that they've done some, I guess it's called a necropsy. It's an autopsy on an animal. They found minute traces of something called magnetite. It's a tiny little ferrous metal, microscopic. Most living creatures have them in their brains to some extent.
Like a compass.
And exactly, that's where I'm going. And this stuff is laid down in the ocean floor, okay? And when the Earth was cooling, okay, this stuff was all over the ocean floor. But as the Earth cooled and the poles became more magnetic, they're like tracks in the ocean core, in the core of the Earth that run north and south. They don't run east and west, they run north and south. So the prevailing thinking is that the whales can sense this from the magnetite in their brain. They must line it up somehow with the magnetite that's been buried in the Earth's core that goes north-south. So they can kind of navigate by feeling the magnetism of which way they're going. They can tell if they're going east-west versus north-south. So they kind of navigate that way. So that's kind of a cool thing that I learned.
I feel like I'm high. I feel like I just smoked a bong. But that would make sense, right? I mean, think of like a rumble strip on the side of the highway.
Exactly,
like, that would be going east-west because you'd be going over all the lines. And then if it was smooth, it'd be like, oh, we're going north-south.
Yeah. And they might use other sensors. They might have some kind of underwater navigation. They recognize maybe seamounts and stuff like that. But the prevailing feeling is that they can sense that because the magnetite that has solidified, when the Earth's core solidified, the poles made that magnetite go north-south, okay? So now that that's fixed in the ocean's core, whales, and to some extent, they think either maybe sea turtles do the same thing, maybe even birds can sense magnetism, and maybe that's how they do their navigation. So they think that's one of the leading theories behind it, how they have animals, especially whales, do their navigation. Kind of interesting stuff.
It's insane. It's just melting my mind. You know, in much the same way that you left the corporate world to go do this, or I decided not to go to medical school and started a podcast. Like, it's two people that are capable of something but chose to do something else. And I would say we're probably both more fulfilled than
yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, than what we were doing previously.
Yeah.
You know, granted, it's different. Yours was your job. Mine was what I was going to do. Do you think, and now we're getting out there, do you think that something like a whale, it could be so intelligent, and, you know, your first question would be like, well, if it's so intelligent, how come it doesn't rule the world? Maybe, is there any chance, not that you would know the answer or anyone would know the answer, maybe they don't want to. Maybe they look at it and they're like, hey, what's the end goal? What, you build up a military and go get involved in foreign wars, and everyone's killing each other, and you're dropping nukes, and World War II and World War I and Vietnam, and maybe the way to go is just, we're just going to swim around in the tropics. It's a much better life. Maybe they dropped out of the corporate evolution. They're just like,
Maybe they're waiting for us to become extinct, which we're doing a good job of. And then when we're gone, they'll take over.
Lie in wait. Sun Tzu, Art of War. Don't interrupt your enemy making a mistake. Maybe they're like, we'll be out of here. Don't worry. Bide our time.
Yeah, these fools will kill themselves. They'll leave the rest of the world to us, you know. So hopefully we don't mess up the rest of the world, you know, by what we do.
Yeah, but it almost feels like dolphins and whales. It's like, maybe they're choosing. They're like, yeah, no, we thought about the whole evolution thing, and we're just like, well, I mean, what's the point of, you know, becoming a human? Well, if you're successful, you make a lot of money. And what do you do if you make a lot of money? You retire. What do you do if you retire? Well, you can go swim in the Caribbean with whales. And it's like, why don't we just cut out the middleman and just go swim in the Caribbean? Like, maybe that's the ultimate intelligence, is the fact that they are intelligent, yet never came up out of water. They never went and, right? It's like some
actually, whales, we'll go back again, especially humpbacks and the other whales. The thinking is they evolved from a land creature that went back into the water. They evolved from a creature that kind of looked kind of like a hippo.
Yeah.
Because in a whale's body, you know, their pec fins, those long fins that we still look at, they have the same. When they've done a dissection, they find the same structure as a human hand minus a thumb.
Okay.
Yeah. So that could have been not a human hand, obviously, but an animal's, you know.
Yeah.
Grasping whatever, you know, claws, and along their body, at about where their legs would have been if they had legs, okay, they find vestigial bones, hip bones, where legs used to be, but have evolved, you know, just gone, you know, in favor of a tail, you know, that goes into the water. So most of the scientists, I think this is not even a theory, I think it's a fact. I think they might even know the name of the animal that whales evolved from. But it was a land animal. It was an animal that eventually, you know, it came out of the water, okay, evolved on land. And then many years later, when I say many, millions of years later, for some reason decided to go back into the sea and lost their legs, and they became whales, you know, whatever. So, you know, evolution is a tricky thing.
Now that you've had both experiences of sharks and whales, what's the real defining difference? I mean, aside from the obvious, like, one will try to kill you and the other might do it indirectly.
I would say it's high octane terror on the one hand, versus when you're talking about great whites, okay, versus shock and awe on the other hand, you know, of, oh my God, and you feel at one time, when I see is, you know, I mean, I've gotten used to sharks, so I don't panic when I see one. Now, if I saw a great white and it didn't have a cage around me, that would get me to panic a little bit, maybe, you know. But with whales, it's more of there's a certain shock element of seeing this huge thing and you're so close to it. But you become in awe of it so quickly because it's so powerful, it's so big, it's kind of benign, if you will, you know. And we're talking about, like I said, in most cases, humpback whales here, okay? Because you have, whales are basically categorized in two different categories. The baleen whales and the toothed whales, okay? Are the two main classifications. Baleen whales are your blue whale, the largest animal that lives on Earth. Humpbacks, right whales. So, you have those whales. Then you have the toothed whales, which are the sperm whales, orcas, pilot whales, whatever. And they have a little different culture, and they obviously are meat eaters and stuff like that. And there are stories of, people, sometimes had bad encounters with them on occasion, but they're not known to attack people per se, but, accidents do happen. So you have those two broad classifications of whales, and it's, so I don't know if I would get in the water with a sperm whale. I mean, people have, and I've seen YouTube videos of a person taking a hook out of a sperm whale's mouth, and the sperm whale's very happy about it. But they are basically the largest carnivore ever to roam the earth. A sperm whale eats meat. They eat squid. They eat octopus.
Oh,
they eat the giant squid.
I didn't know that.
That's humpback baleen whales basically eat the smallest creatures. They eat krill and things like that, and plankton and stuff. They strain it out through their baleen plates, and they take in hundreds of gallons of seawater, right?
Yeah.
Push it out with their tongue. They can't blow it out because their system is not. They're unlike us. They can't breathe in through the mouth and blow out through the nose, or vice versa, like we can. It's two separate systems. So when they push the water out, they use their tongue like a piston to push it out past those baleen plates, and then they swallow, whatever krill and plankton they've strained out, and they have actually very small throats for the size of their bodies. Their throat is not much bigger than a grapefruit, so they could not eat anything too big. Just recently, was a guy who got taken in. He was almost swallowed by a humpback whale. It was all over YouTube about a month ago. He was out in a boat doing something, I don't know, or snorkeling, and a humpback whale came up that was actually in feeding mode, looking for krill and things at the surface. He happened to be in the way, and the whale actually got him in his mouth and closed his mouth, and he's inside the whale's mouth, wondering what's going to happen to me. And the whale kind of shook his head and spit him out. He couldn't really swallow him. Unfortunately, the guy didn't have a camera. It would have been a great thing to see. It was all over YouTube about a month ago. So that's what baleen whales are all about. Toothed whales, obviously, they can eat killer whales will eat other whales, or seals and things like that. Some eat just fish. They have different. When I talk about different cultures, just to digress over the killer whales, they have their one classification called Transients, and these whales roam the ocean making no noise, little as possible, because they realize that their prey can hear noise. Like seals, they can detect sounds, so they hunt quietly, and they will eat seals. You've seen pictures of them going up on the shore to pull a seal off the shore and stuff like that. Whereas a different population of orcas only eats fish, only eats salmon. And the two populations never breed. They've almost become two species, even though they look identical to the naked eye. So that's what I was talking about earlier. These whales have evolved different cultures depending on what they eat, what they like to do and stuff. It's just amazing. So, I was kind of rambling there for a minute.
No. It was wonderful. I gotta go to the restroom real quick. Are you good to do like another 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah, sure. I can hang. Yeah.
All right, beautiful. Can you monologue for a minute? I gotta run to the restroom. Tell them where to find your book.
Okay. Well, we're taking a little bit of a break here. The other book that one of the nonfiction book I wrote, it's called Bubbles Up, and in that book, I relay a lot of these adventures that I've had with humpback whales. Both myself and my co-author, Judy Hemingway, actually, who was one of the trips. And so we wrote in Bubbles Up a lot of our whale stories or whale adventures that you can find in there about what we've been talking about. Although it's not just about whales, it involves anything to do with the ocean. It could be swimming with sharks. It could be looking at sea turtles. It could be walking on the beach with your grandchildren. It could be riding waves as a kid. So it's really called, the subtitle is Buoyant Adventures in Planet Ocean. That's Bubbles Up. That's a nonfiction. Whales Angels is the second in my series of adventure novels. There were 5 adventure novels. There, Dangerous Waters, Fireworks, Whales Angels, Near Miss, and Killer in Paradise. and those have scuba diving as a background for the story. And they're on Amazon under my name. You can look me up, Paul Mila, M-I-L-A, or you can put the title of the book into a search. I'm also, my website is milabooks.com, milabooks.com, where all these are on there. And if you like, if you buy one from the website, you have the option to either go to Amazon or directly to me, where I can send you a signed copy. If some people like to have a copy signed by the author. So we're back.
We are. Thank you, sir.
Commercial's over.
Hey, that's the only price these people have to pay. This is a free podcast. They can deal with the commercial. I don't want to hear any complaining. So, swimming with whales, does that give you any grasp of, like, I'm not sure if you would think about it, does that give you any more of like a realistic grasp of, I'm trying to see how I word this. I think I went on an Alaskan cruise too in 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually went and saw like whale, like I guess whatever they were, and they all breached the surface like all at the same time.
Oh yes, that's a feeding center.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first and only time I've ever been on a cruise ship, and like.
Me too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was awesome. It was, it wasn't like the spring break going to the Cancun. It was just like, no, it was awesome. I've recommended it to as many people as I can. I think the one we went on was like Princess Cruise Lines. It's probably the only one, but like it was amazing.
I think we did Celebrity.
Yeah, and, it was amazing.
You did the inside passage. You go down to all those. Stop at Juneau and Saskatchewan, all those.
Yeah. I know what you're talking with the totem pole. Yeah. And it was awesome. And I love meditating, and my favorite thing is like meditate out on your own like private little porch, and it was like the most serene, like clouds coming down the mountains, and like literal icebergs, just you could hear them groaning and creaking. It absolutely majestic, right? And it's like 2 a.m. sunlight. It absolutely majestic. But being on a cruise ship, it kind of gave me like a little, and I know modern ones are much larger, but it gave me like just if anything, like a slightly more realistic visualization of like, oh, like the terror of the Titanic or the Lusitania. Like, oh, imagine this whole thing going. You get you can watch a movie, you can read about it, but then when you're standing on this floating city and you go, oh, okay, you just from little things, from the way the waves are crashing to go, oh, there's, right, you see and smell, just like I'm sure you could read about whales versus going there. So I say all of that to say, does it give you any better grasp of like the megalodon?
What the megalodon could have been?
What theoretically what it was for everyone listening, it was like the granddaddy of like the great white shark. It was the apex predator. It was like a great white shark, like the size of a whale.
Exactly. Yes. Well, the idea of what whales gave me was the a more of a solid understanding or feeling of what the size is, the magnitude. It's one thing to imagine. If I say imagine something 60 foot long, weighs 1 ton per foot, and it's huge around like a bus and stuff like this. Okay, you can mentally kind of take a picture, but when you experience it, now I got it in my mind. Okay, I know what that's now. I got a more concrete visualization. It's more than a visualization. It's a concrete understanding of the dimensions of the size, okay, having seen them. So, put very big teeth on something like that, like you're talking about, and if that was megalodon, I would not have been in the water with it anywhere near it.
Well, of course not. You wouldn't be in a boat near it.
Yeah. So that thinking about that, seeing great whites was one thing, but I know a pretty good size. But again, to marry that, with the size of a whale, and say that could have been a shark, the ultimate OMG. Yeah. Because it actually, does megalodon even exist anymore? Some people, the prevailing theory by most people is that they're extinct, probably not around. However, there are certain things in what is called the Marianas Trench.
Challenger Deep, yeah.
Yeah, that goes way, way down. They don't know what's really down there. And the thing that gave me some cause for wondering about this is that, when they tag these sharks, they put these little transmitters on them and stuff like this. And all of a sudden one day, the transmitter stopped, and it was a huge shark, right, that they put this transmitter on, okay? And they were tracking it, this, that, and everything else. And one day, and they were able to track this thing underwater. Okay, so it didn't have to come to the surface to hit a satellite. They had a way of, with a transponder, I guess. I don't know. But this thing was in that area of the Challenger Deep or the Marianas Trench, and all of a sudden, it stopped. And the prevailing theory was, something could have eaten this thing. What could have eaten it? What could have made this thing stop? This the transmitter. The transmitter didn't come loose, didn't lose its battery power, didn't come floating anywhere. It was intact. It was doing its job, beeping, and all of a sudden, no more signal. And the only explanation they could come with is, they don't think it came loose, because otherwise it was designed to float to the surface if it came loose. That something killed and had to consume this thing to stop it.
Destroy it.
If it died, it would keep on beeping,
Yeah.
But this thing is now inside something else.
Stomach
that
acid.
prevented it out.
I was going to say, and digested maybe, stomach acid, burned it.
Yeah, and the thing that they had tagged was a 15 or 20 foot great white. So they're saying, okay, maybe there's something bigger than a 15 or 20 foot great white somewhere down there. And that's, who knows?
I mean, maybe it was like a 1 in a trillion chance where it hit something the right way, and but I don't like that. I'm going to go full in and believe it's a megalodon. I had on Charlie Duke on this podcast 3 times. He walked on the moon. I love moon conspiracies. Talking to Charlie Duke, a blessing in itself, has completely shattered any moon conspiracies, because I'm like, oh, well, now I'm talking to the guy that was actually there, and I can see the pictures of him on the right, and it destroyed it. And for that,
there's nothing on the dark side.
I know, right? And it's been a blessing, because I've now got to talk to an Apollo moonwalker several times, but it's also been a curse, because now I don't get my moon conspiracies anymore. I will not let the megalodon conspiracy be taken from me. It's what else would it be, right? It's now, when was this?
This is within, I would say, the last 5 years. It's not like 20 years ago. It happened within the last couple of years. Could have been 2 or 3 years, but I'm saying 5 to buy me some more time. I'm not really sure, but it started sometime when they got the scientific ability to make these things robust enough that they could use them with reliability. So it's within the last 5 years, 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, because it's got. Then you got to imagine there's got to be someone or some team searching for it. Just if nothing more, to be able to say I discovered it, right? Just general human ego, right? It's like, someone wants to say I did it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the possibilities might be remote, but I think there's a good chance that there are things down there that we don't know, are there. And it's people don't realize the magnitude of the ocean, especially the Pacific Ocean. How big it really is. I mean, you can see on the map, say, it's pretty big, but you don't really have a grasp for especially when you think in 3 dimensions. We look at a map, you look at a globe, we see the Pacific, north, south, east, west, 2 dimensions. Okay, pretty big. Wow. Yeah, I guess it's pretty deep, but you really don't know how deep it really is until you experience it. So that kind of 3-dimensional area is huge, and there's not, who knows what's really all the way down there at the bottom in some of those deep trenches. There could be big things eating other big things that we don't even know about. Yeah. They just discovered, the giant squid used to be the biggest squid, until they discovered, there's one bigger called Colossus. And they named the colossal squid, which is even bigger than the giant squid. So
I'm going to look that up right now.
Yeah. So, who knows when that thing resides. When they've seen sperm whales come up with all kinds of, sperm whales hunt these squids, that's what part of their diet. And they come back with huge scars around their bodies from the tentacles, and these tentacles are huge. They even found one sperm whale that had floated to the surface after being drowned by one of these things. It was able to come up. It was so powerful, it held the whale down until it killed it, until it ran out of breath. So, there's a lot of things down here I would want to run into if I had my choice not to.
Colossal squid, Mesenchoteuthis hamiltoni, 39 to 46 feet, up to 2,000 pounds, and they are just as aggressive as they are fast. Mm-hmm. Jesus. But wasn't even the giant squid, wasn't even that just kind of like like a rumored legend until like relatively recent?
Well,
Or am I fake news?
I think the giant squid always was, because if you ever see these pictures that they have of and stories of old time steamers, the sailing ships with the thing that they call the Kraken.
Yeah.
I think what they call them, the Krakens came up. So that's probably based on some kind of reality.
Yeah.
And if you have divers have had experience with what they call the Humble Squids, and these Humble Squids are about their bodies are 5 to 8 feet of pure muscle, and the tentacles reach out another 20 or 30 feet, and these things are vicious and they're intelligent. They communicate, they flash different colors when they want to communicate their mood, and they know what they're doing when they attack a diver. Divers have been terrified because they, they'll try and rip off their goggles, their face mask, they'll try and rip out the regulator, and they're quite aggressive animals. So I mean, and they're reputed to have a high degree of intelligence. So, that's something I wouldn't want to tangle with either. And those you can read about those experiences, all over the place. Where divers have had experiences where they know that the squid tried to pull them back into the depths, and do their thing. So, we're talking about an animal that's maybe 5 or 6 feet long, with a 20 or 30 foot tentacle. Imagine the body could be 50 feet long, and the tentacles could be 60 feet long. It's just and you have a 110 foot animal there. That's how it would measure out at. There are things down there that should stay down there.
I mean, that is the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, definitely.
Pull you back down in the depth. I hope the megalodon's real.
Me too.
Like, I hope it existed at one point, but like, fine, whatever. I hope there's still somewhere deep, just at the bottom of the ocean, just some like 70-foot long. I mean, would there be anything more badass than that?
I don't think so. And one reason people say, well, we've never seen one, so therefore it couldn't exist. Well, maybe there's no reason for it to. If it has enough food down there,
yeah,
there's no reason for it to come up any higher and look for food. If there are other big things down there for it to eat, why come up? You're a fish. You don't need to be there.
Yeah. I mean, we know there are all those deep sea fish, right? Like the 20, 30,000 feet. They look like aliens.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe. Why wouldn't? I mean, just like that hippo-like animal could go back into the water and become a whale. Why couldn't something that's already a water creature? Why couldn't it kind of do the same thing but go deeper? I mean, there are heat sources, right? The hydrothermal vents, the sulfur, like the underwater, like sulfur vents. Like, we know that there's fish and stuff. They found like crabs at like the bottom of the ocean. These weird crabs that somehow withstand the pressure. There is food.
Yeah, not only withstanding the pressure, but evidently what comes out of the crevasses where these hydrothermal vents are, animals have learned to eat whatever nutrients come out of that stuff. Which is different from creatures that are much higher. They've learned to metabolize these things, the minerals and stuff like that, and they're perfectly happy down there in an environment that would kill most things.
Yeah.
So, I think it was the Jeff Goldblum in the dinosaur movie there. What the heck was it called?
Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Nature will find a way.
Yeah.
So nature finds a way to live and to survive. And they've been able to exist on things that would kill other, what we call normal forms of life.
I mean, what if you're down there in the Marianas Trench in your little bathysphere or whatever it is, or whatever? Who's his face? Who's the director that went down? James Cameron.
Oh yeah, James Cameron. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, what if he just like never told anyone, but like down there he just saw something move and it was just came back up and it's just mum's the word.
Maybe you should call Steven Spielberg.
Maybe I should.
Get him onto his move. That could be pretty thrilling.
Jesus, that's.
Sometimes what scares people more than the things that they see, are the things that they can imagine but don't see.
Well, that's kind of like the whole mythology of the ocean, right? It's what is on the far side of the moon, what is beyond the planets, right? It's what alien ship is lurking out there where we can't see. That's right. That's half of it is just you don't know, right? Good Lord.
Then the fact that it could be there is what makes it fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everyone's always like, we've mapped the moon, we've mapped Mars, but we've only mapped 5% of the ocean floor. I'm like, leave it that way. Let's keep it sexy. Don't ruin it. I can still imagine that Cthulhu's down there. Cthulhu, how the hell you say it? Paul, let's wrap this one up.
Okay.
Let's definitely do another one. I'll text you after this.
Okay.
I'd love to do one about your actual corporate career. I think that would be interesting.
We could try. I got to say, I did have an interesting career because I had many different lives. I kind of reinvented myself a few times as I was a corporate economist, besides being a financial analyst. And then I kind of spanned the technical world with the business side of the world. So I was not a super tech guy, but I could understand enough of tech to explain to the business owners of a product to say, okay, we have to develop this and go back and forth and get it developed. And I had some managerial expertise to get it done. So I worked on some interesting stuff along the way. It was, at that time, it was cutting edge. So we worked in computers when, nobody can spell DOS today, but it was all DOS, and things like that. I laugh when I see kids take this stuff for granted, and I said we worked in that stuff to make things happen. It was pretty incredible stuff. So I had some fun doing that stuff. Yeah.
I would love to do that, and I will put the links to your books in the description, and I will try to. So I pulled up the pictures on the screen, so they'll be there, but I'll also just add them in at the end of the video, just like a couple seconds each, so people can see them.
Right. Okay.
Jesus, I'm happy you did it because I can live vicariously through you, because I will never do that, and I don't mean that in a not with that attitude. No, I mean, even if I ever had the funds and the ability, I would not do it. A lake is that's pushing it for me. I'm like, there are fish in here. I'll allow this. I would never do that. You're a madman, and I respect that, but I'll never go. But I will live vicariously through you.
Okay, well, enjoy it. I just don't want to pass away from this world not having done something I ever wanted to do and say, gee, I wish I had done that. So I'm packing as many adventures as I can. I'm not a thrill seeker. I wouldn't jump out of a plane with a parachute,
Sure.
But this kind of stuff really floats my boat. Quite the fun.
You had to do that. You had to do that fun. You know what? You're not allowed back on here. That was it. That was the kill shot. You're not. It's done. It's done.
We'll finish at a high point.
Yeah. And hey, man, go ask the king. Thank you so much for coming on here. The Megalodon does exist, and I will not let anyone tell me otherwise.
There you go.
And good Lord, man. That was awesome. Thank you for your pictures. Thank you for walking me through that. Those things, I mean, I'll pull them up again. I mean, these really are. I mean, these things are dinosaurs. It just.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're as big as dinosaurs.
Jesus.
Yeah. And they're still here.
They're still here. Good Lord. Thank you so much, man. Let's wrap this up. I'll put the links to the books in the description, and I'll text you when this is up. And let's set up another one, man.
Great, thanks. It was fun as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right. God bless. Take care. Stay safe, everybody. Peace.